Topic is nervous system in detail. List is given below. This system is highly complex part of an animal that coordinates its actions and sends information by transmitting signals to and from different parts of its body. Nervous system derives its name from the nerves, which are cylindrical bundles of fibers that emanate from the brain and spinal cord and branch repeatedly to innervate every part of the body. All animals more advanced than sponges have nervous system. Sponges have cell-to-cell signaling mechanisms. Radiosymmetric animals have nervous system consist of nerve net. In bilateralian animals, nervous system has a common structure. Nervous system is divided into central nervous system and peripheral. In central nervous system, which is the major division, consists of brain and spinal cord. Spinal canal contains the spinal cord, protected by meninges, three-layered membranes, and including it of leathery outer layer called the dura mater, protected by the spinal cord by the vertebra. Cranial cavity contains the brain and is protected by the skull. Peripheral nervous system. This term is collectively used for the nervous system structures that do not lie within the central nervous system. Large majority of the axon bundles called the nerves are considered to belong to the peripheral nervous system. Nerves that transmit signals from the brain are called motor or efferent nerves. Those nerves that transmit information from the body to the central nervous system are called sensory or afferent, and spinal nerves that serve both functions are called the mixed nerves. Peripheral nervous system is divided into the somatic and visceral parts. Somatic nervous system consists of the nerves that innervate the skin, joints and muscles. We can see here, this is the somatic nervous system, including skeletal muscles. The cell bodies of the somatic sensory neurons lie in the dorsal root ganglion of the spinal cord here. Visceral part, also known as the autonomic nervous system, contains neurons that innervate the internal organs, blood vessels and glands. This system itself consists of two parts, sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. This is briefly flowchart. Here, central nervous system contains spinal cord and brain. Then peripheral nervous system, cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Go for the motor or efferent divisions, means include motor nerve fibers having somatic nervous system and autonomous. Again, this is for the sensory or afferent divisions, mean to the peripheral nervous system and then to the central nervous system. And autonomous also goes for the sympathetic and parasympathetic division. The vertebrate nervous system can also be divided into areas called gray matter and white matter. We can see here. Gray matter, which is only gray in preserved tissues, but light pink or light brown in living tissues, contains high proportion of cells bodies of neurons. Gray matter is found in clusters of neurons in the brain and spinal cord and in cortical layers that line their surfaces. It is composed, white matter is composed mainly of myelinated axons and takes its color from the myelin. It includes all of the nerves and much of the interior of the brain and spinal cord. There is an autonomical convention that a cluster of neurons in the brain or spinal cord is called a nucleus, whereas a cluster of neurons in the periphery is called the ganglion. The nervous system contains two main categories or types of cells, glial cells and neurons. Here we can see the astrocytes microglia, ependymal cells, and oligodendrocytes. These are four types of nucleoglia cells in the central nervous system. Glial cells, name derived from the Greek for glue, are non-neuronal cells that provide support and nutrition, maintain homeostasis, form myelin, and participate in signal transmission in the nervous system. Most important function of glial cells are to support neurons and hold them in place, to supply nutrients to neurons, to isolate neurons electrically, to destroy pathogens and remove dead neurons, and to provide guidance cues directing the axons of neurons to their targets. In human brain, it is estimated that the total number of glia roughly equals to the number of neurons, although the proportions vary in different brain areas. Very important type of glial cells, oligodendrocytes in the central nervous system and Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system generates layer of fatty substance called myelin sheet that wraps around axons and provides electrical insulation which allows them to transmit action potential much more rapidly. We can see here. Glial cells such as microglia and astrocytes serve as important resident immune cells within the central nervous system. The nervous system is defined by the presence of a special type of cells, the neurons. Neurons can be distinguished from other cells in a number of ways, but their most fundamental property is that they communicate with other cells through synapses, which are membrane to membrane junctions containing molecular machinery that allows rapid transmission of signals, either electrical or chemical. Many type of neuron possesses an axon, a protoplasmic protrusion that can extend to distant parts of the body and make thousands of synaptic contact. Axons typically extend throughout the body in bundles called nerves. We can see here the whole neuron, dendrite, cell body, and then axons and axon terminal. Even in the nervous system of a single species such as human, hundreds of different types of neurons exist with a wide variety of morphologies and functions. Sensory neurons that transmit physical stimuli and motor neurons that transmute neural signals into activation of muscles or glands. However, in many species, the great majority of neurons participate in the formation of centralized structures, the brain and ganglia, and they receive all of the input from other neurons and send their output to other neurons. Unipolar, bipolar, and multipolar are the types of neurons. At basic level, the function of nervous system is to send signals from one cell to others and from one part of the body to others. There are multiple ways that a cell can send signals to other cells. One is by releasing chemical called hormone, and second one is the point-to-point signals. Mean neuron project their axons to specific target areas and make synaptic connections with specific target cells. At integrated level, the primary function of the nervous system is to control the body. It does this by extracting information from the environment using sensory receptors, sending signals that encode their information to central nervous system, processing the information to determine an appropriate response, and sending output signals to muscles or glands to activate the response. Neurons and synapses, we can see here the electrochemical wave. The electrochemical wave called an axial potential travel along the axon of the neuron. When the wave reaches at a synapse, it provokes release of a small amount of neurotransmitter molecules which bind to chemical receptor molecules in the membrane of the target cell. Receptors, synapse, and neurotransmitters. Most neurons send signals through their axons, although some types are capable of dendrite to dendrite communication. Neural signals propagate along an axon in the form of electrochemical waves called action potentials, which produce cell-to-cell signals at points where axon terminals make synaptic contact with other cells. Synapses may be electrical or chemical. Electrical synapses make different electrical connections between neurons, but chemical synapses are much more common and much more diverse in function. At chemical synapses, the cells that send signals is called presynaptic and the cells that receive signals is called postsynaptic. Both areas are full of molecular machinery that carries out the signaling process. The presynaptic area contains large number of tiny spherical vessels called synaptic vesicles packed with neurotransmitter chemicals. Synaptic cleft. When the presynaptic terminal is electrically stimulated, an array of molecules embedded in the membrane are activated and cause the contents of the vesicles to be released into the narrow space between the presynaptic and postsynaptic membrane called the synaptic cleft. This area, presynaptic, postsynaptic, and this area is known as the synaptic cleft. The neurotransmitter then binds to receptors embedded in the postsynaptic membrane, causing them to enter an activated state. Depending on the type of receptor, the resulting effect on the postsynaptic cell may be excitatory, inhibitory, or modulatory in more complex ways. For example, release of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine at a synaptic contact between a motor neuron and muscle cells induce rapid contraction of the muscle cells. There are literally hundreds of different types of synapses. Over 100 known neurotransmitters, and many of them have multiple types of receptors. Many synapses use more than one neurotransmitter. Molecular neuroscientists generally divide receptors into two broad groups: chemically gated ion channels and second messenger system. Chemically gated ion channel is activated. It forms a passage that allows specific types of ions to flow across the membrane. Depending on the type of ion, the effect on the target cell may be inhibitory or excitatory. When a second messenger system is activated, it starts a cascade of molecular interactions inside the target cell, which may ultimately produce a wide variety of complex effects. Neural circuits and system. The simplest type of neural circuit is a reflex arc, which begins with a sensory input and ends with a motor output, passing through a sequence of neurons connected in series. Here we can see withdrawal of reflex, which causes hand to jerk back after a hot stove is touched. The circuits begin with the sensory receptors in the skin that are activated by the harmful levels of heat. A specific type of molecular structures embedded in the membrane causes heat to change the electrical field across the membrane. Development, also known as the neurulation. In vertebrate, the first sign of the nervous system is the appearance of a thin strip of cells along the center of the back called the neural plate. It is neural plate. The inner portion of the neural plate is destined to become the central nervous system, and outer portion is the peripheral nervous system. As development proceeds, a fold called the neural groove appears along the midline. This fold deepens and then close up at the top. At this point, the future central nervous system appear as cylindrical structures known as the neural tube, whereas the future peripheral nervous system appears as two strips of tissues called the neural crest. The sequence of stages from neural plate to neural tube and neural crest is known as the neurulation. In pathology, central nervous system is protected by major physical and chemical barriers. So these protections make the central nervous system less susceptible in many ways than the peripheral nervous system. Although nerves that tend to lie deep under the skin, but in a few places such as the ulnar nerve near the elbow joint, they are still relatively exposed to physical damage, which can cause pain, loss of sensation, or loss of muscle control. Damage to nerves can also be caused by swelling where a nerve passes through a tight bony channel, as happens in carpal tunnel syndrome. In addition to physical damage, peripheral neuropathy may be caused by many other medical problems or poisoning by toxins, vitamin deficiencies, genetic conditions, etc. Feature detection, Dale's principle, carpal tunnel syndrome, Guillain-Barré syndromes are the terms described by the students. Terms asked in explanatory lecture of circulatory system was examples of closed circulatory system. All vertebrates as well as of annelids is the example of closed circulatory system. Open circulatory system is arthropods. Bronchial circulation is a part of the circulatory system that supplies nutrients and oxygen to the cells that constitute the lungs as well as carrying waste products away from them. And coronary circulation is the circulation of blood in the blood vessels that supply the heart muscles, mean myocardium. Any question regarding this topic or any topic can be asked through comment section, and thank you.